Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So Canon just put up for pre-order their 600mm, 800mm F11 lenses. You can get them on Adorama. Kind of see the little blurb here, the little thing up there. $699, $899. Fairly affordable considering the price of other lenses, and lightweight. So kind of go over some of the things here. What we're going to talk about is the usability of these lenses at F11. Kind of rings in deja vu as far as the old mirror lenses we used to have. The manual focus. This is an actual autofocus 500mm f8, and it is about £1.50. So go down the list here of some of the lenses we're going to compare it to. I'm also going to go down a list of some of the images I've shot over the last 5 years at what ISO, shutter speed, get average there, and see where F11 is actually going to come in here. So if we look at this is a Sigma 300 to 800 full frame, 1200mm APS-C equivalent. It rings in probably around 15 pounds. This is the 100 to 400 Panasonic, which is equivalent to 200, 800 at 2 pounds. And everybody knows the Sigma 150 to 600 over here, about 4.25 pounds. The sport edition of this 150 to 600 is 6 pounds or so. And I mentioned this lens here, the 500mm 750 APS-C mirror f8, is probably about £1.50 or so. And of course we got some point and shoots. This one's about 3 pounds, 3000mm, and the P950 over here is 2000mm. So 600mm, 800mm. Those lenses, the Canon RF mounts, are running about 2 pounds to 3 pounds. The 800mm is right around 3 pounds, a little less than that. So you can see that's a pretty good fit. That's about the weight of this little guy here. That's actually pretty significant. A little bit bigger for the 800mm. They extend out. But there's some things, you know, I had these lenses pre-ordered with the teleconverters and everything. I was pretty excited because, you know, Canon coming out with this design, it's kind of forward thinking, you know, got to make things light, big lenses and that. But I started looking through the technical details, and once I started looking through the technical details, like minimum focus, I started really digging into how I shoot, and maybe some other people might not be taking some of these things into consideration if they order it or if they're interested in it. So minimum focus distance, that's a big one. For the most part, people take that for granted. Now this has a 12-foot minimum focus, 8 foot, 9.8 feet, about 10 feet, and these are about the same. On the Canon 600, it's 14.5 feet, and on the 800, it's 18.6 feet. That doesn't sound a lot, like a much difference, but it's actually almost double the distance on the bigger lens. So what that means is if you're shooting really small birds, I'll post some warblers and some other photos, you're going to need to get as close as possible. These birds were photographed around 1600 millimeters, and as you can tell, I'm barely, you know, I'm filling up the frame, but it's not just absolutely right on top of them. And if we're going to use teleconverters, so if you have 800 mil and you need another 800 mil, you're going to put on that 2 times teleconverter. So the question is this: Canon in the past has had some discrepancies with their teleconverters. Their older systems, for instance, the Rebels and the 80Ds didn't work with some teleconverters, like their 7 Mark IIs, their Sport Edition DSLRs would. And so there's the Canon ESRP, which is the $999 version, which a lot of people have or probably will get, because the R5 and R6 are pretty pricey. They're $3,500, $2,500. Will those teleconverters work with it? If you know, put it down in the comments. I'm curious. I've looked all around. I'm not getting that answer as far as I can tell. We can assume, but a lot of people have been burnt in the past by Canon producing these teleconverters, and they only work with certain cameras. So that's the case. The big question though is the F11, F16, or F22 with the converters or without. And looking through some of the data, last 60, I'm going to say 60 photos over 5 years, I'm going to break this down as where I'm at with the ISO and how this kind of gels out. So most people shoot generally in two types of conditions. If they really want fairly good photos for wildlife, they shoot in golden hour and in overcast. The golden hour is 1 or 2 hours after sunrise and 1 or 2 hours before sunset. And obviously slightly overcast, you have those cloudy winter days where it's overcast, your shutter speed, ISOs are going to be bumped up. ISO's going to be bumped up, your shutter speed's going to be bumped down, but you're going to get a full illumination of the animal. It's really kind of like a softbox on the animal that you're photographing. That being said, some of my average shutter speeds as far as golden hour, we're looking at an ISO of 850, shutter speed of 1/600th, the aperture at 5.6, and the length of the lens was 1030. I know that seems a lot. I was shocked by some of these numbers. I didn't think that the lens was that long that I was using, but also the ISO was higher than expected. And looking at that, so 850 ISO in comparison, shooting the same camera at F11, we're probably looking at an ISO of 2500 to 3200 average. That's really high. That's really high if you're trying to come out with things. On overcast, I'll show you this photo here. This is a photograph of a squirrel, overcast day, f8, using this camera, 1/250th of a second, ISO 3200, f8. To pull this off at f11 in an overcast day, we're talking you're going to have 6400, 128, well above the normal. And shooting in overcast conditions, and that's not even with the teleconverter on, it's going to be rough. You're going to be jacking that ISO way up as far as I'm concerned in my situation, and that's basically the summation of it as far as pulling the pre-orders and just kind of waiting to see how some of this gels out. Now, maybe the calculations are wrong. I would like to hear from you guys, see if you guys are excited for this stuff. Is there something I'm missing? But right now it just seems, wow, it just seems very tough to kind of justify jumping to a new system for something like this. Full frame's tough, we're trying to overcome the big lenses, the expense of it. Micro Four Thirds had one thing right. They might be going out of business and might be dying out, but the small size and good teledistance for the cost associated with it and performance, they knocked it out of the park. But things move on, and guys got comments, concerns, I'll address them along those lines. If you like this stuff, hit the subscribe button. I appreciate your time, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week.